Hi everybody. In this video we're going to go over rendering your project with some very basic but powerful Final Gather settings, and you're going to get some really nice results. This is the before, which is using the Maya software setup, and this is after taking some steps to set up the ground and set up the shadows and set up your staging. So let's get started. All right, so I have here the rock that we have all created in class and textured. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn on this camera setting called resolution gate. Usually when you're working you have no gate on, so it looks like this and there's no rectangle there. But I'm going to go to view camera settings, resolution gate, and it's going to give me the pixel number of my render settings and which pixels are going to be rendered, right? So I can actually set that up in my render settings, which the window shortcut is this button right here. Okay, I'm going to click on that, and for this render what I would like to do is set it up to HD 720. So I'm going to go to my common tab and I'm going to choose HD 720, which is a 1280 pixel by 720 pixel. Awesome. Okay, so the next thing I need is a floor, so I'm going to create that using a polygon mesh plane. And I'm going to just scale it large enough so that that it takes the entire horizon, right? Ideally, you don't see the corners of these planes in your camera capture. Okay. So using my resolution gate view and using my perspective camera, I'm going to position my render. So I'm probably going to get like a perspective view like this, side view, top view, right? Whatever your project is calling for. But for this project, I'm going to get a nice perspective view, all right? So I'm going to set that up and I'm ready to go. Now, your program is going to come with Maya software settings as a default. And when you render this, you're going to get a render like this. All right. So compared to the last render, it's going to be a lot less smooth. There's no shadow. Okay, the ground is gray, right? So what I'm going to do is turn on my mental ray settings. Okay, and I can turn it on using the render settings right in here. Now, if you don't see this in the drop-down menu, what you can do is go to Windows Settings, Preferences. Excuse me, that's the wrong window. Windows Setting Preferences, Plugin Manager, and go down to the plugin called Maya20MR, which stands for Maya 2 Mental Ray Bundle. Okay, so make sure it's loaded and auto-loaded. Now I'm ready to change that to mental ray, and there's a couple of settings I want to set up in here. So one is the indirect lighting. I'm going to turn on my Final Gather and turn up my accuracy from 100 to 500. All right, it was already 500 because I changed it before. And the other setting I'm going to change is my quality. I'm going to keep it at unified sampling, but it was 0.25, so I'm going to change that to 2. Okay, 0.25 is actually the preview view, and you're going to get some pixelation around the edges and also the shadows. Okay, so that's great for when you want to test render something, but when you're ready to render your final shot and turn it in, you can bump it up to 2, which is the production setting. Okay, And then we have the size set up in the Common tab and so on. Now, there are two things I want to do in my scene right now, because if I just render this, I'm going to get a pretty nice render, okay, because this is Final Gather at 500 and I turned on the quality to 2.0, right? But I want to deal with the floor. Right now it looks like a gray Lambert floor. And also this environment back here, I set up to be not a black background. Okay, so I'll go over how I did that. Let's save this. So I'm going to go to Window Outliner, and in this exercise I'm using the perspective camera. So I'm going to select my perspective camera. I'm going to open up my attribute editor, okay, which is this third button right here. And what I'm going to change is, if you scroll down, you're going to access the environment tab. So I'm going to open that up, and in the background color, usually it's black, okay, but I'm going to change it to gray, one of these gray colors. Right? So when it was black, by default it should look like this when you render, but now it's going to look like this with the gray background. So what's cool about this is that the Final Gather settings that we set up in Mental Ray is using that light information inside my background color to light my scene. So I don't have to create another light here because it's going to be using that color information and bouncing light from it. So that's one of the features of Final Gather, that it can use things like color on a texture to generate light information. Alright, so the other thing I want to do is take care of the floor and kind of give it this seamless floor look, right? So what I'm going to be using is a node called Use Background. What I'm going to do is go ahead and create another Use Background, which is inside your Maya Hypershade settings. So I'm going to click and create Use Background. And I'm going to drag and drop it with my middle mouse button onto my floor. Now when I render this, it's going to take a moment, but you're going to get some reflection, right? And you're going to still see the floor. Now this Use Background should actually make your floor color match the background sky color, okay, but it doesn't look like it's matching, and that's because the reflection information is making it look lighter. All right, and that might be the look you want. You might want that reflection, right? I don't want the reflection, so I'm gonna actually go into my Use Background 2 attribute editor, and I'm going to turn off my reflectivity. Okay, so if I do a regional render for this, I'm just going to grab an area here and do a regional render because I don't want to wait for the whole thing to render. Now I'm going to get the same exact color of the background, and I'm going to get a nice shadow but no reflection. Okay, so let me do my final render. And you're going to notice that actually the render speed is considerably slower than what you had before. So when I did Maya software render, it rendered really in 1 second or so, very quickly. It depends on the CPU of your computer, but with now these high quality settings with Final Gather accuracy set to 500 and your quality set to 2.0, this render took almost half a minute, so 27 seconds. And you can see that right down here. All right, and then now you're ready to go to File and save your image, and you can choose whatever file type that you need.